For those of us in grain and fiber, we've spent the last 48 hours telling everyone the sky is not falling. This has actually been very useful for our industry. It's the first time that the federal government has acknowledged an industrial hemp definition.
That's Morgan Tweet from IND-Hemp, and this is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. Hello there, my name is Eric Herlock. Welcome back to the Hemp Show. So today we are keeping our attention on the recent changes in hemp policy at the federal level and what these changes are going to mean for U.S. farmers, processors, and companies in the hemp industry. Today I'm joined by two leaders who come from distinctly different corners of the hemp landscape. Danielle Bernstein is from Laurelcrest, a vertically integrated Oregon-based manufacturer of premium bulk CBD and minor cannabinoids, finished goods, white label, and custom formulations, and the company is deeply engaged in regulatory compliance and global sourcing. And we welcome back Morgan Tweet from IND-Hemp. She is representing the fiber and grain side of the industry. So stay tuned for this interesting and nuanced conversation, all that and more, plus a sticky nugget of hemp news right after these messages. This episode is brought to you by King's Agri-Seeds, serving farmers with high-quality seed for over 3 decades. King's has been at the forefront of hemp in Pennsylvania and around the Mid-Atlantic region, offering reliable hemp grain and fiber varieties, along with agronomic support to help growers succeed in this emerging market. But hemp is only part of the story at King's. King's is also known for their extensive lineup of forage and cover crop solutions, from alfalfa, clovers, pasture mixes to annual forages and small grains. Their goal is to help farmers build resilient rotations, improve soil health, and maximize feed quality. To learn more about King's Agri-Seeds hemp program and their full catalog of crop options, visit kingsagriseeds.com or call 717-687-6224. This episode is also made possible by Forever Green, distributors of the KP4 hemp cutter. The KP4 hemp cutter sets a new standard for harvesting, quality, speed, and efficiency. The KP4 prepares hemp for ideal retting and easy on-field tedding, raking, and baling. Easy to maintain and designed to withstand the punishments of hemp harvesting, the KP4 hemp cutter, available only at hempcutter.com. All right, welcome back. So, as you may have seen from the internet, we've got this big news nugget that everyone's talking about. So, I'm going to summarize this story that I read about on hemptoday.net. With a single stroke of his Sharpie, President Donald Trump just ended one of the wildest chapters in modern hemp history. Tucked inside the government funding bill he signed last week is a provision that outlaws intoxicating hemp products, Delta-8, THCA flower, HHC, THCP, all of the lab-made and chemically converted THC variants that exploded across the country under a loophole in the 2018 Farm Bill. Overnight, that multi-billion-dollar gray market, vapes, gummies, slushy drinks, gas station edibles, has no legal footing left to stand on. Hemp Today reports that the redefinition of hemp in the new law is sweeping. Instead of looking only at Delta-9 THC, the law now uses a total THC standard that includes Delta-8 and any isomer and derivative with similar effects or marketed to have similar effects as THC. It also bans synthetic and converted cannabinoids outright. If it wasn't naturally produced by the plant, it is no longer considered hemp. And once a product falls outside of the definition of hemp, it's expected to be treated as a controlled substance. So the disruption is huge, a sector estimated at more than $10 billion and employing more than 300,000 people will collapse in its current form. Stakeholders face stranded inventory, banking risk, insurance exposure, and the likelihood of coordinated enforcement sweeps and product seizures, some of them even before the one-year implementation window closes. Congress also gave federal agencies 90 days to publish lists of which cannabinoids occur naturally in cannabis sativa L, which cannabinoids belong to the THC family, and which cannabinoids have THC-like effects. In short, the era of unregulated intoxicating hemp is over. But the law also does something else. It returns hemp to Congress's original intent, a crop grown for fiber, grain, and non-intoxicating seed derivatives. And that clarity, while painful for the intoxicant market, could finally unlock the stability the industrial side has needed for years. And that brings us to today's conversation with Morgan and Danielle. Morgan Tweet leads I&D-Hemp, a Montana-based company building grain and fiber supply chains from farm to finished product. She also serves with the Hemp Feed Coalition and on the board of the National Hemp Association, giving her a front row seat to federal policy, feed approvals, and the broader maturity of industrial hemp. Danielle leads Laurelcrest, a vertically integrated cannabinoid ingredients company known for its rigorous quality standards, global sourcing network, and regulatory compliance enterprise. She also serves on the board of the American Herbal Products Association, where she works at the intersection of policy, safety, and product standards for hemp-derived cannabinoids. Here we go. Morgan Tweet from I&D-Hemp and Danielle Bernstein from Laurelcrest. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are y'all doing?
We're good. Thanks, Eric.
Doing great.
Yeah, this is exciting. There's a lot of news happening this week. So yeah, both of you sort of jointly published an article recently laying out sort of a way to address what's happening now. And so Congress just added hemp definition language to the government reopening bill aimed at reining in intoxicating hemp-derived products while protecting industrial hemp and CBD. Morgan and Danielle, you are coming from different sides of the hemp spectrum, I guess. You know, Danielle's on the flower side, Morgan's on the fiber and grain side. And together, you argue that this is a really amazing opportunity for change. This is sort of a defining year coming up for hemp. There's a sort of a 1-year window to get this right. So we're going to unpack that a little bit. So welcome both. I wonder if you could introduce yourselves a little bit, starting with Danielle.
Thank you for having me. I'm Danielle Bernstein. I'm the president of Laurelcrest, and we are one of the primary cannabinoid ingredient manufacturers in the United States, and we distribute worldwide. So we make CBD and CBG and all different kinds of distillates, and also distribute the minor cannabinoids into a variety of different finished products.
Okay, welcome. Morgan, listeners hopefully know you because you've been here a bunch, but reintroduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Morgan Tweet. I'm the co-founder and CEO of I&D-Hemp. So we're a large primary processor of grain and fiber. We're located in central Montana and been advocating for industrial hemp for several years now, and excited to see a chance to sort of reach across the aisle as it is, and met with Danielle and others and feel like we have a really shared vision to try to bring some clarity and some optimism for the hemp industry.
Excellent. I would like to, full disclosure, I&D-Hemp is one of our sponsors of the show. But Morgan, you're also involved with the Hemp Feed Coalition and various other sort of efforts to move the needle. So thank you both for being here. So first question, how should people understand this new hemp language in the government reopening bill? What changed? What didn't? If you look at the internet, the sky has fallen, the hemp industry is over. But I have a sense that neither of you agree with that.
Yeah, I'll take a whack at it first. So I'm also a board member of the National Hemp Association, and we've been working for several years to get bifurcation language. It's been called the Hemp Exemption, the Industrial Hemp Act. It's had a few names, but it all has the same premise, which is a definition for industrial hemp, grain and fiber, so that our farmers can be regulated differently and that our markets can be managed differently since we have a much lower risk profile. And so we've been working with McConnell's office. We had a bill with Tester and Braun that was introduced. We know that our language was in original draft language, both in this House and Senate Farm Bill drafts. And so this definition of industrial hemp has been 5 years in the making. And so Senator McConnell did have it in his appropriations language. So for those of us in grain and fiber, we've spent the last 48 hours telling everyone the sky is not falling. This has actually been very useful for our industry. It's the first time that the federal government has acknowledged an industrial hemp definition. Some folks may not see that as like, that's not a big deal, but for us, it is, because really it's that foundation that allows us to launch most of our communication, working with USDA, trying to change those regulations of how we manage hemp farmers. Because again, I think our risk profile is much lower. But then McConnell also had in there some more directive language around floral production and allowable limits for THC. And so, from my understanding, and happy to hear Danielle unpack it, this wasn't an attack necessarily on CBD. Originally, McConnell, I think did want CBD to be a viable market and a cultivated product with the 2018 Farm Bill, but it's just evolved. And so I think he was trying to maybe secure CBD in this language. But the reality of what the market is today maybe has more implications. So happy to hear what Danielle sees of it too.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
I'll start with a little bit of like how we got to this moment. There's a lot of confusion around the definitions of what hemp is. And that is part of why Morgan wanted this language to be clearly two different pathways. I was coming from the perspective of we're really at the beginning of an exciting time in hemp and the multiple possibilities. So I don't see hemp as an industry. I see it as an ingredient and a building block that fits into categories within a myriad of existing industries. And that is everything from like material sciences to health and wellness and medicine. And so because of a lot of the definitions around the 2018 Farm Bill, which really does, in my reading of it, focus a lot on cannabinoids. There's been a bunch of products that have come out that are extremely therapeutic and helping a lot of different people that have THC content above this 0.4 milligram per package amount. And it's really important to people. There has also been a whole market developed. And I would say that separating this from the beverage, the THC beverage market, but a whole market that's appeared that is mostly in states that do not have regulated or recreational cannabis that do get people high. And that, I think, there's these different places in which we can regulate intoxicants rather than create kind of arbitrary numbers. And I think that that's where this 0.4 milligram becomes problematic, because it was in response to a quantifiable amount. That was what it said first, is a quantifiable amount of THC. That's very vague. That could be 0 or a lot. Like it's like a completely undefined number. But the way that it's written now, unfortunately, in an effort to stop that gray area of things that are able to intoxicate someone, that are sold into places where they might be packaged the wrong way or packaged to be presented for younger people or kids, it's really kind of eliminating these more exciting and encouraging spaces of health and wellness and more medicinal application. And then also these alternatives to, what we currently would say is the alcohol market, which we're seeing a huge social shift. So, for me, I feel like I jumped in to really give some perspective to all these organizations around the manufacturing and what it means to have, language that doesn't really that doesn't achieve what we really are trying to achieve. And so 0.4 unfortunately eliminates the entire kind of scope of cannabinoid products, whether you wanted it to be, saving CBD. It also is too low to really be a viable number to be able to manufacture CBD products alone. And I think, just in my perspective of international markets, you can look at Japan as a really good example of a country that became very conservative around their THC limits. They lowered them to 0.001 or 1 part per million as the allowable limit, which is almost what this is saying. It's like very close to the same. I think this is 0.0013 when you do the math. And it really, crushed the market. And then also government immediately did a compassionate observational study of a full spectrum product because patients came forward. And so the one thing I think is also going to happen, and what I think Morgan and I are both excited about, is more people are going to come to the table to discuss what it is that we really want to save and what we don't like about what's happened with some of the less defined areas or the loopholes that have been created by the 2018 Farm Bill language.
So, in the article that you wrote together, you call this a defining year for the hemp industry. So it's exciting. Like this is a new opportunity, right? So tell me about why it's defining and, sort of what your plan is.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it goes back to one of the reasons policy hasn't worked in the past is a lot of it has been asking USDA under the Farm Bill or asking regulators under the Farm Bill languages, like to Danielle's points, definitions, to manage this market and manage multiple facets of the supply chain, which that's just not how it works. And yes, there has been requests by Congress to FDA that have like not gotten off zero. And so what we've been working on is like a full policy framework that we are working to get consensus in the industry and on the Hill that we want to see a path forward for these multiple ingredients and material spaces. We want to secure a viable path for industrial hemp, but we also want to give appropriate regulatory framework that defines jurisdiction appropriately so that we can allow these businesses and farmers and final form products the right space to flourish and innovate. And so I believe that this is the first time a holistic policy framework has been presented to Congress. And because at the end of the day, like they have no motivation really to come up with the solution. They're very busy people and they're waiting for, they want the industry to provide this for them. And so what we've outlined is a 3-phase approach that keeps cultivation and production under USDA, that keeps manufacturers and processing under FDA, under DSHEA, dietary supplements, and then keeps the product and final form and distribution of impairing products under TTB. Because the reality is impairing products, the market is there. They know that it's there's demand for it. And when we don't create a safe place for people to engage with those intoxicating products, like they go underground, we get unsafe product. The behavior that we've seen proliferate is that example. And so for the first time in my career and for our businesses, we've kind of said, okay, we are leaders in this space. Let's take the ownership to like create a safe and regulated path forward that doesn't prohibit and squash the opportunities. To Danielle's point, we're just at the front end of seeing all the amazing things that this plant can do. Let's not cut its knees out from underneath it, but instead just appropriately regulate it so that it can grow responsibly.
Danielle, do you want to add to that?
That was well said. I think too, just to go towards some of the consumer trends from being in the ingestible space or making the ingredients that go into the ingestible space, it's like you really do, you have to listen to consumers. And consumers want alternatives. You're seeing a huge explosion in that for non-alcoholic beverage, and THC beverages are a major part of that. And I think that that's just the beginning of of a category that's going to be really, really important to big alcohol. And it's happened really fast, and so you have infrastructure, as we were saying, that already exists to regulate these things. Is just bringing everyone together in such a way that they don't feel like they're fighting. We're not fighting each other. And a lot of the hemp industry from the ingestible side has been asking for regulation for the last 8 years, because at the end of the day, what happened is that the Farm Bill passed. And then, as Morgan was saying, the jurisdiction just kind of ends in this land on the USDA, really. The FDA didn't want to take on hemp. And so the states started to. And for me, as a manufacturer, that's a patchwork of regulation that we have to navigate as a private company. And it just leaves a lot of room for people to take advantage of it. And we really want to work with the federal government to put something at the federal level that eliminates that ability, because state to state, it's just, you can see it in the regulated cannabis market. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's a big mess.
It's a big mess. And so companies who are trying to operate at the highest level and ensure that we are doing our best to follow the law is a self-regulation exercise. And so the investment and the time and the money that goes into that is because we want to do it right. And it would benefit everybody if we had some leadership at the federal level
Yeah,
who was like,
imagine that.
this is how you actually do it, because we are doing it for other industries.
All right, so Congress tacked this language on to the bill to open up the government. They put a 365-day sort of time limit on it. And in that time, now we're expecting Congress to sort of finalize things in the Farm Bill. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and I sort of see this as McConnell's like shot across the bow and like providing a near-death experience for the cannabinoid sector to get our together. But I do think that that's McConnell saying like, look, you got a year, figure it out. Like you got to do this responsibly. And so like we think that he actually is going to be a real asset for our
Industrial
policy
hemp.
framework, because I think you recognize that there have been businesses that have have seen value. There have been farmers that have seen value, but it's just been the wild, wild west. And so I think it's actually been an effective tactic, right? Like the sky has been falling for a bunch of people. And I would say, hey, now is not the time to just like panic and run away. Like, let's hunker down. Let's, create a working group. And that's what we've done here. And let's create a really strong campaign that absolutely has policy at the front, because we need to get it right. And we have a year to do it. But also, like, let's take the opportunity to navigate this energy and these resources, right? There's a lot of people that are ready to buy their way out of it. So let's use those resources to also support a marketing campaign to help educate consumers. Like, I can't tell you how many people have been in the business, right? 8 years. I've got more like hits on social media or just reach out of like, is your industry falling apart? What's going on? And so like we have a moment in time, right? They say there's no such thing as bad press. We have a moment in time to capitalize and really direct people to the bigger opportunity, which is the goodness of hemp, right? All the amazing things it can be. We've all been saying, hey, we need a Got Milk campaign for hemp. Well, here's our moment. Let's not screw it up by infighting and suing the government. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many attorneys are just salivating thinking of the lawsuits they're about to endeavor on that are going to be fruitless. I think we all know that. And instead, let's say, okay, let's do it right. Now, are there companies and products that are not going to survive? Absolutely. Because those are people that have been, we call them the bad actors, the people that have been exploiting the loopholes, putting products on market that are unsafe, that don't have good GMP policies, that, have been operating out of a garage or whatever it is, right? That we all know that these people exist. And to Danielle's credit, she has self-imposed higher qualities of standards of quality to her business at a cost to do good business. Businesses like Danielle's should be given a chance to engage in the market. And those companies that, have just been riding the tide, I don't think they survive. And I'm not here to create a pathway for them to survive. Like, good alcohol businesses are a great example, right? We know what happens when people make, whiskey out back, and the concerns that happen there with their fire whiskey and whatnot. And I'm being a little facetious, but it's a good example that people understand.
Yeah.
Is that when alcohol like got regulated and all of these things, it came at a cost, right? They had licenses they had to pay for, they have audits they have to do, they have taxes that they have to participate in. But it created a responsible market for alcohol to be sold and manufactured. And that's why I think we don't have to recreate the wheel. I would encourage us not to. Will things have to be adjusted specifically for cannabis? Absolutely. But let's try to attach on to that framework in some sense and work with Congress to make a path forward that is specific to cannabis, that, really shepherds the products to market.
Yeah. And I would say that it's so important because all of this, I mean, in some ways, just this insane explosion of products that are psychoactive on the market have totally overshadowed all of Morgan's work and what's possible for American farmers, and also just like innovation in material sciences and building, and a ton of benefits that industrial hemp brings into so many different sectors of America. And if the government, which I mean, it's like a crazy environment at the moment, but I mean, part of this administration's promise was bringing back American opportunity and American manufacturing and, America first. All of those promises. The only thing that I see as a possibility to actually deliver on that promise, and that's coming from the industrial side, is hemp. There's nothing else that you could start growing tomorrow, and you have scaled manufacturing like I&D to take to market things that can be, everything from addressing things in the animal feed world to building materials and probably like a gazillion other things that I won't list.
You're speaking my
And
language.
it's being overshadowed by this, also a little bit of just like THC panic, which isn't really, I also think does not need to be the focus. It needs to be the other things that we could define better if we're given time to responsibly do that.
What happens if Congress doesn't do this in the next year? We're just going to be
I'm moving
spinning
to
our wheels?
I mean, that's a good point though. I think that America loses businesses, and I think the American farmer that has been trying to cultivate flower biomass, it goes away. I don't think that that's a secret. There are more lenient laws globally, like in other countries, that will allow companies like Danielle to go and serve the consumers over there. And so we do lose businesses, we do lose revenue. I think I'm a little cautious to be a crisis warranted person, because I think that rhetoric doesn't serve us well. Because I think the people who really like to get us excited are the people who are talking about money that has been generated in ways that hasn't been responsible, right? I'll just kind of like leave it there. So I think we lose the opportunity. I think floral goes away in any meaningful way, or at least is set back considerably, because USDA has proven that they can manage it, right? It's not the farmer's fault. Let's be that really clear. The farmer has had nothing to do with the problems that we have today. And so helping us define what that farm gate was is really important, so that the farmer doesn't keep getting blamed for the problems at hand. It's the people that are taking that material, that are converting it, or, selling THCA flower, which is 100% marijuana flower that they're calling hemp. Those are the things.
Yeah, the gymnastics that you have to do there, it's just a riot to me, because from what I understand, like in Tennessee, you can buy essentially, nuggets of THCA flower that legally isn't marijuana until you smoke it. Like, that just seems crazy. Like, I don't understand any of that, but
there are some really interesting arguments around this one, and the reality is that it's weed.
Yeah. Just call it weed.
I mean, there is no path on that one. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's been a lot of things that have made it into this kind of, they're actually legal. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it was in Prague. I met the people who were trying to build a framework for psychomodulating substances. And because so many people die of alcohol in Czech Republic, they're trying to put alcohol underneath that. So anything that's psychomodulating, they want to get into a category and see, what is the safety profile? How can these be regulated for the benefit of the public? And it's kind of like embracing too, in a way that I think America needs to, these conversations need to embrace consumer demand. And that's where I was saying before, because if people absolutely want to go get wasted, they're going to find something like the backyard whiskey to do it. You're not going to be able to stop that. And that's the same with getting high.
Yeah. People have been peopling forever, right? And they don't change. And yeah.
Yeah. And so if you know that this is something that people are going to seek, it is the responsibility of the government, I think, to help the industry regulate so that it is safe.
What should growers and processors be watching for as they plan for 2026?
From the grain and fiber side, I think that this is a little victory, and I'm, celebrating, but I'm empathetic for businesses that are concerned about the future. But let's not miss the small victory that this was, because we have Congress finally they have acknowledged that we exist and that we can be managed differently. That's a huge win. And I think if nothing happens, I think that definition of industrial hemp will roll into the Farm Bill and grain and fiber will be secured. I'm actively staying involved because I want to make sure that that happens, right? Like I can't risk it, that it just like maybe works out. I think that we're going to use this on our side to really go after investors, to go after markets, those pockets of business that we feel like have been sitting on the sidelines, waiting for us to get clarity. I think you see a renewed enthusiasm to try to get people engaged there. But at the end of the day, we still have to just go to work, right? You got to make good, high quality products. You got to grow good, high quality product and things like that. So I don't think our day to day life changes. I think I would encourage processors to continue to understand what equipment they need to use, what markets they're trying to serve, what the customer is asking for. I would encourage farmers to partner with processors. There's still not enough of us for you to just go grow it and then sell it on the open market and think you're going to get a valuable product out of it. You need to engage with processors ahead of a cultivation season to make sure you're really growing what they need and what you can sell.
Good advice. Danielle, what's your year going to look like now with this? Like, how does this affect your business?
Well, we are continuing forward. We do have a worldwide distribution model, and so we are shifting a lot of attention to other markets and really leaning into what I think is interesting about hemp, as I manufacture it, totally compliant and below 0.3% on anything that we're shipping out. Is the regulated cannabis market buys hemp ingredients for their different products that are effect based. So if you want a CBN sleep gummy or a CBG THCV daytime gummy, the majority of those ingredients are coming from hemp. And so if 0.4 milligrams per package does absolutely decimate the hemp industry, I have a huge amount of question around how that doesn't also decimate all of those SKUs in the regulated cannabis industry. Because if we all fail, so do they. And there's a thought that it's not connected, but it is intimately connected to everything that's happening in regulated cannabis with therapeutic minor cannabinoids that are going towards effect-based things that are sold in the dispensaries. So my business, and I think all of the cannabinoid companies, need to be having really honest conversations with their executive teams around what are the markets that we're serving and what is the reality of what states have been asking. What are the things that we've just like looked past and been like, we're just gonna not pay attention because it's better to do that than to dive too far in, because then it raises more questions. I'm really hoping that we can come, as I said before, to something that gives us some federal guidance, because right now we're having to operate at a state to state level. But if federally it goes to 0.4 milligrams, unfortunately, there isn't much of a cannabinoid business left. So that applies to all sectors. It would be beverage, medicine, and the more recreational products.
Is this an opportunity for, full legalization? Like, could that help everybody if, okay, hemp is defined as this, and then, I don't know, there could be a change in federal policy? Would that open up a new pathway for CBD folks?
I think Schedule 3, if it goes that way, it also kills cannabis. It kills recreational cannabis because there are a lot of there's a lot of parameters around people who've ever participated in a federally Schedule 1 market not being able to participate in a pharmaceutical market. So I don't actually know. I mean, it's kind of like either the biggest, like, crush them all and take it for ourselves move, or people really want to see a regulated market. And I don't actually really know. It's a little out there, but if Schedule 3 also goes through, that would eliminate Laurelcrest's immediate ability to serve that market with our minor cannabinoids. And so it would be pretty, it would be pretty catastrophic. And if it just all legalizes, then why did we go through this exercise?
So, as someone that's not in that, I'm going to dumb it down for maybe some of your listeners because, like,
And for
I'm
me,
not
dumb it
in this
down for
space.
me.
But this is my interpretation, and I don't want to speak too much to rescheduling because I really don't know anything about that. But I agree with Danielle that, like, I think what she's saying is rescheduling basically just lets the pharmaceutical companies come in and they will own it. And so that's where she's saying she wouldn't be able to serve those because, it would be a different game you're playing with, right? But when I look at the framework we're proposing, and not to, share too much of our secrets, because I think, like, this is all negotiations and things we need to get feedback from Congress. But the optimist in me is, I think what we could prove, because the appetite on the Hill and the appetite of our country, I think, is pointing towards, like, federal legalization and opening up a market. We're not there yet today. I think that what we are proposing, the framework to manage hemp, and in pairing compounds, right, like THC, and dividing it into these things is a test run for how cannabis could be managed in a full legalization, right? We're saying this is not all that different from alcohol. It impairs your ability to do things. Let's understand with really good science. And so I'm super excited that we're working with groups like the Cannabis Research Center that's been funded by the FDA for decades. They have lots of really good data to share, like, what is intoxicating? What are these limits, right? We all understand the endocannabinoid system is different. It doesn't interact with every person the same. So we need science to lead the conversation. But if we do it right and we create the framework, then we say, okay, this is a way that if, whatever, when we accomplish that, if there is an appetite to put all cannabis out onto the market in a regulated way, let's test it with hemp, and maybe then it could go to, adult use cannabis and all the other things. So I'm maybe being overly optimistic and naive, and I'm sure there's a lot of attorneys who are telling me it's not that simple because they got a lot of money to make it complicated. But that's what I think.
No, I love that optimism.
Yeah,
And
me
I think
too.
that is also totally a pathway. I think that science is really the thing that is needed. And that's part of the issue with the zero point 0.4 milligram per package is, where is that number coming from? Let's get it based on something that is applicable to what do we find to be potentially impairing or intoxicating, and what problem are we really trying to solve? And I think that that's what Morgan and I have come together to do, is ask all those questions and then start to frame the solutions and in the infrastructure that exists. Like, we're not asking to reinvent the wheel.
Right. And we certainly don't need another, like, arbitrary number like 0.3%, right? Now we have 0.4 milligram. Like, okay, thanks for
Yeah, we do
arbitrary
not
numbers.
need arbitrary numbers or definitions, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So what does a healthy, balanced hemp industry look like to each of you?
Well, I think one thing to point out is, like, we are both family owned and operated companies, and we are serving our communities. We're providing jobs. We are supporting our families. I mean, that is a really unique thing to be able to do in an entrepreneurial space. And there's a lot more opportunity for that within industrial and floral pathways. And so I feel like the thing that has been the most difficult, I think, for both of us is that there is no regulatory security. There's no security in pursuing this. It's just like believing and, like, continuing on, because the hemp plant is pretty, I almost said intoxicating, but that's not what I meant. It's really exciting.
It's spiritually intoxicating with the
It's spiritually
opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity, but also just, like, it's a magical plant. The more you learn about it and the more that you understand of its capabilities and what we also don't know and we're building towards, and, like, seeing Morgan's plan and seeing, like, how they, like, iterate and iterate and iterate, and everything's just getting better and better and better. It's like we're just at the beginning, and there's so much opportunity for family businesses to be built and supported by hemp. And I think that that is what I would like to see, like, is for this to be a real opportunity for American families and those who've built something to not have that also kind of compromised by irresponsible players.
Yeah, I love that.
Your question was, what does a well-balanced hemp industry look like? And I echo all of Danielle's sentiment 100%, right? It is emotional, right? We've given our blood, sweat, tears, and lives. These are like our peak years, and we're just like giving it to the hemp industry in so many ways. Um, but I think like I boil it down to is like we have an identity crisis as an industry. And so I would like to think a well-balanced industry is one that doesn't have to try to take the limelight from either one or try to, outstage another. It's like we each have our own identity and it's appreciated for what it is, right? So that a consumer knows that there's, here is hemp that is a durable material that like I want to have my coat because it's made of hemp. And I recognize that hemp on the label is providing something for me. And I also want that same consumer to go into a drugstore or a pharmacy or something, or just, a GNC, right? And see hemp on a label and know that it is providing something for them and their health and wellness. And so like that identity that is the same name, but is recognized for its value in very different applications. And that is a giant lift. And so I just go back to like policy is absolutely the 365-day ticking clock that we see. But the marketing messaging to the consumer, to me, is the bigger lift that is absolutely required and is the opportunity we need to try to achieve collectively.
And this is the opportunity to reach the people, I think, with that message, or it's, another opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. So what can people do?
So we've been working, just so everyone knows, right? I'm a board member of NHA. Danielle's a board member of the Roundtable, NIHC, FIHO. She's working on the cannabis chair for APA. She has a long list of accolades of, to show that we have been working behind the scenes in the existing associations to try to get somewhere. And so I think that this is the first example of us, you seeing those associations sort of come together. But I go back to like the marketing messaging is so important. And so we've really leaned on a group called HEMI, which is the Hemp Education and Marketing Initiatives, because it has been created to be forward focusing on marketing and messaging. Will it work with those trade associations that have been policy focused? Absolutely, right? It's not taking anything away from them, but it's sort of taking the lead to say, let's really divert all this energy and these resources that like want to see something feasible achieved in a year. And I am really happy with the group that has come under that umbrella to be forward thinking and push through this. So I would encourage folks, it's hempinitiatives.org. Won't lie that like we weren't quite ready for like everything to come to a head. And so we're like actively working to get the website a little bit more user friendly. Okay. Right now, like we have a document that we're putting the final touches on that really goes into exactly what this policy framework looks like. And we want to hear from folks across the industry if they have concerns or they have comments. So we're going to try to create a mechanism for you to provide those comments. The reality is, though, not everyone's going to get everything they ask for. We're all going to have to compromise a little. And so we're going to try to facilitate that conversation. And then also to, again, facilitate financing a campaign to lead this messaging. And I would encourage folks to really consider, because again, there's going to be a lot of things being said out there in the next week or so, to consider joining our objective here. And if we can all like collectively have a common goal to see that balanced industry, then I think HEMI is the right group to lead that charge.
Yeah. I also, full disclosure, HEMI is also one of our sponsors and supporters. So thank you for your support, HEMI.
Because Eric, you've done a fantastic job of sharing with folks what hemp is, right? And like that aligns with HEMI's initiative and its mission to like educate people. So why wouldn't we support a podcast that's doing that?
Yeah, well, thank you. Between the two of you, you're representing, a bunch of different global national organizations. And I just want to point out that it's not unimportant that your names are they're not Patrick, Jeff, or Jonathan. I'll just say that. Okay. So I'm glad you both are here. And I love what you're doing. I love how you're just getting proactive here and getting ahead of it. Thank you both. And I will put links to all of the things on the show page for this episode, and people can learn more. And yeah, this is exciting, and good luck in the next 365 days, right?
Thank you.
Well, Eric, we'll keep you in the loop. You're a part of that messaging. You're a really critical piece on the chessboard. So just be primed. We don't know what that looks like. I said that to a couple of people, like, just be ready, because like we want to have the right people sharing the message with us.
Awesome. I look forward to working with you both in the future.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, let me reiterate, the sky is not falling. But as both Morgan and Danielle said, the easy part is over. The hard part, the 1-year sprint to define a real hemp framework, starts now. Their message to the industry is pretty clear. Don't wait for someone else to fix this. Don't assume that grain and fiber are safe or CBD will be fine. Engage, respond, and help build the framework. Both of them pointed to HEMI, the Hemp Education and Marketing Initiative, as the place to plug in, send feedback, and help shape the policies that will become the permanent version of this language. You can find links to HEMI on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com. I'll have the link to the article that Morgan and Danielle co-wrote, as well as links to our sponsors and the News Nugget. All right, so that does it for me. Thank you for listening to today's show. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the senior digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Get a subscription to our print edition. Read an article about farming. Everything is waiting there for you. If you have questions or comments for me, please send an email. Send it right to me at ehurlock@lancasterfarming.com. All right, until next time, I will see you in the newspaper.
This episode of The Hemp Show was written, recorded, and produced by Eric Herlock. Mixing and mastering by Justin Berger. Music by Eric Herlock, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. The Hemp Show is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.